Howdy, Meeps, and we're live with the Meeple Syrup Show. It is episode 59, and the name of the show is You Know What They Say About Guys with Big Feet. What do they say, Tyler?
Big shoes.
Yeah, big shoes, that's right. Tyler, put your teeth back in.
I'm a Sasquatch.
I thought you were a vampire. I thought you were gonna start twinkling with like glitter and stuff.
Well, my forehead is shiny.
It's true, your forehead is quite shiny. Um, hey, let's what have you been up to lately, games wise? I saw you Monday night, but I didn't see you Tuesday because I didn't go. What did
Uh,
you play?
I got to see the beginnings of Above and Below. It
Yes.
looks really good. I liked it. I was just really tired and couldn't get into the game, so someone had to take over for me. And I have played the heck out of Raiders of the North Sea
Yes. Your
by
new favorite game.
Shem Phillips. People will be getting it on their doorstep any week now. It's on the ocean, apparently. Love that game. I lose it every time, but I love playing it. So,
That's a sign of a good game, when you lose it but still like it.
exactly.
We're getting questions about the intro. So the lack of the intro for those of you who just tuned in and didn't hear the song and see us dance is mostly because my basement's flooded. My wife is currently shop vacuuming the basement while I'm doing the show, and then I'll be back down there to shop vac more of it and salvage my games and salvage my Lego and all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't have time to do the intro video. So Tyler will now sing and dance for you. Ready? Go.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So lately I've just been playing. Today I played Dead Drop,
Oh,
and I play by Jason Katarsky, published by Crash Games, which I can mention something. Maybe in a few weeks you'll be hearing something more about Crash Games and the Bamboozle Brothers joining forces for the power of good. Um,
ooh.
and then I also played a lot of the Paco games from our good friend Chris Handy.
I
Played,
just sent Chris Handy a message tonight about doing some reviews for him.
yeah, have you played the Paco game stuff?
I've played 3 of them so far, and I've liked them all.
They're
I
totally
like
up your
them.
alley.
They're quick, simple, and fun. That's
Which
what they
ones did you
should be.
play?
I've played Hue, Fly, and the that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
is awesome. I love that
Yes.
game. As
Yes.
I
And
love
I
word
love word
games.
games too.
Yeah, and so I think that's a great word game for the amount of cards, and it's beautiful to look at, and it's very smart. Today we played TKO and Fly. Fly is just a silly game. It's just
Yeah.
silly. And TKO is actually really fun. TKO is just very much like rock, paper, scissors plus one, but it's just funny to try to get in the heads of people. It was very funny because it's two psych profs playing this game, and we're both getting in each other's head. So that was good. Other games that I've been playing lately, lots of X-Wing as usual. About to upgrade my guy in the. Oh, if you guys play X-Wing and you haven't played the Heroes of the Artillery Cluster by my friend Josh Dirksen, download it at dockingbay416.com. The beta version is out, and it is amazing. It's like playing an RPG, but using X-Wing rules, and then you can upgrade your ship and your pilot and stuff like that. So it's very cool. Other than that, what's been going on? Other than that, what reviews do you have coming out?
I just got 4 games in the mail today from Theo Graca from California, I believe is where he's from. It's a Karma Cubes game where you're rolling dice, collecting sets, gaining and losing points. But there's like 5 games in the series now, I believe. I had the first one, and he sent me the rest of them, so I'm going to be taking a look at that. There's another 2 or 3 I'm going to be getting. It's just all jumbled in my brain. I'm awful with names, but I know what the pictures of them look like.
And sometimes that's good enough.
So,
And I guess I've been teasing about our signing. So Jesse Wright and myself have signed a couple games, and I can tell you guys what they are now because their contracts are signed.
congratulations.
So Jesse and I signed a storytelling game, which is why I'm interested in Above and Below, by the way. A storytelling game called Mythos, set in Cthulhu type of storytelling stuff, where the storytelling actually matters, where it's not just reading stories, it's not a paragraph game. It's
Okay.
actually you have to tell the story, and by telling the story, you get action points to do things if you correctly tell the story, or tell the story such that your teammates can say, yes, you did what I wanted you to do. and they can't obviously hint what they want you to do. Except in their stories, they can kind of lead into it. It's a really neat mechanic. And then back onto that, we licensed the rule set to another IP through Toy Vault. So this is all through Toy Vault, one of our great sponsors for the show. And the other one we're doing is Outlanders. So Outlanders, that Scottish television show with brawny, redheaded guys that girls love, and the Sasquatch. Oh, and hey, look at brawny, redheaded guy who girls love. There you go. He has more hair on the top and less hair on the bottom. Anyway, so that's our recent one from Jesse and myself signings, and then we'll hopefully be able to talk about a couple more soon as well. So anyways, why don't we go all the way live and direct to Seattle? We're going to go to SasquatchCon and call Daryl into the show. Bam! Daryl, what's up?
Hey, coming to you live from Seattle.
So what do they say about guys with big shoes?
They have better lives.
If you can see the guy in the Grand Con shirt at the back, that is our friend Brandan Parsons. Brandan is the rep for Blue Orange Games.
What's your technical job title?
Marketing associate.
There you go. That's pretty fancy, Brandan. I didn't know you were that fancy.
Boom.
That's pretty good, man. Brandan, we already have a question from the audience for Blue Orange. Let's see where to go. It's up here somewhere. Where to go?
Sir Bob had a question.
Yes. Okay. So, Brandan, what is the deal with Blue Orange transitioning from more children's games that we know you for in North America to mass market type games in the hobby games like 1901, Chenier's game?
Sure. Well, I think that they're all related. I mean, we're still making games for kids. We're just making different types and a wider range of them. I mean, one of our first game was Goblet. Goblet is very much an abstract strategy gamers game type of deal. And then when we partnered with Blue Orange, what's now known as Blue Orange Europe, was then Jactalia. They were much more focused on hobby games. Like they've got a great relationship with Bruno Cathala, and they've been doing a lot of So like one of our first moves towards this more hobby market was Battle Sheep, which at the time was under Jactalia. It was a game called Splits. And it was just a two-player game, and then we sort of expanded it into 4 players, made it a little bit more appealing to the U.S. market with kids by adding the sheep theme and the cute art to it. And the response was great, and we're going to continue doing games in that direction as we go.
Excellent. And what's your presence at Sasquatch like?
Sasquatch, I'm just here playing games with people.
Oh, so you're just like a regular Joe.
I'm just an average Joe.
And that's all good.
Yeah, we got a couple of our games here, Dr. Eureka and New York 1901, but I'm not hyping them or anything.
I carried those.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, Tyler, have you seen Dr. Eureka?
No, I have not.
What?
All over it. Test tubes, like 4 of them. And
yeah, so...
Oh, yes, I have seen it, where you have to get the balls.
Yeah, you gotta have recipes that you need to fulfill, and you do it by pouring.
Yes.
And the order of the puzzle.
I can't wait to get that game.
Yeah. So Roberto Fraga is one of my design heroes as well. He's awesome, and I'm so happy to see his stuff out. Whenever I see it, it's like, it's such a great idea.
We're actually bringing 2 of his games over next year. So Dr. Eureka's brand new, and then Kaboom, which was published by Hutch. So that's coming to the States next year.
Oh, to you guys. Nice.
I like Kaboom.
Yeah, Kaboom's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So Kaboom and Dr. Eureka, we got 2 from him, and I'm really excited about both.
Yeah, that's right.
I just have to give a plug. I finally got to play it, and Suze was the one who taught me it. I had played a game by Bruno that I was a little disappointed by, just a smidge, which is shocking because he's my favorite designer.
Why? Because you lost?
The follow-up game that I was taught was Longhorn. And I loved it. I love that game. The little cows.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
man. I gotta
You
get
hadn't
that.
played that before?
I never played it.
I thought I played it with you at Origins.
No. It is
Oh, it might. No, I played. Brandon, what's the game where you stack up totem poles?
Wakanda.
Wakanda. That's
Wakanda. I played
yeah,
Wakanda with Tiff, but who did I played Longhorns with somebody?
not me.
Yeah, maybe Jay.
We,
No, Jay wasn't at Origins. It was at Origins for sure.
we got
Anyway,
another Charles Chevalier coming out next year that I'm not officially talking about yet, but it's
kind of scoop.
it's a worker placement. It's gonna be good.
Oh,
Nice,
talking about him. I just got to play Antarctica.
right?
That's designed by him. Very interesting, except for the end.
Oh,
We found out that there is an end condition where you can get stuck forever. And
Oh.
we found it.
like
and
like
then we
frozen in ice, maybe.
And then we contacted the designers via Twitter, and the designers are like, "Yeah, that can happen."
Oh, so you just made the edge case occur. Way to go.
Yeah.
I blame you.
The game just
It
stopped.
really actually was me. It was fantastic. I saw.
I was just gonna say it's totally gotta be you. Because
I saw it coming,
were you
and I was
playing?
like,
Were you playing for a strange type of win?
It made me win by 2 points because
Yeah, I figured as much. That's
and
you.
then I just ran around and started getting points, and they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Very cool. Hey, Brandon, what's the process for submission for designers out there who want to get games to Blue Orange because they think Blue Orange would be a good fit?
Sure. I mean, the best way is to present it at one of the big conventions. So in America, that's Gen Con and New York Toy Fair. And in Europe, we have Essen and Cannes, the board game festival in Cannes.
Right. It's a Festival du Jeu or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we do have like an online send it in submission, but I always recommend to people to actually make sure you play it with somebody first.
Okay. And why do you recommend playing it with an actual rep from the company?
Well, because I think that you got to get people hyped. You got to get people in love with the game, and the best way to do that is to show them why it's good.
Mhm.
Like if it's a spreadsheet or a Word document, it doesn't convey the same joy and passion. Yeah.
That's right.
And yeah, I've also found that a lot of game designers are not very good at writing about their games.
Yeah.
No offense.
No,
no,
totally. It's true.
That's good advice. And
Yeah.
you make sure your rules are right. You
Yeah.
make sure people capture the essence,
Exactly.
especially if it's just a couple minutes. Then
Yeah.
maybe you show the best moment of the game.
Yeah, and also you can respond to how they're reacting to it. It's a lot better to get feedback and to key in on what's really fun and good about games.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what is Blue Orange specifically looking for? I mean, we used to think of it as more of more kids games type thing, but now that some of the games like Longhorn and 1901 have come out, it's like, is there a new market?
Well, yeah, I mean, we are still making kids games.
Yeah.
More of a family plus sort of market now, but if a kid can't play the game, we don't want to make it.
See, that's perfect. That's great to know.
Yeah, if a kid can't play it, we don't want to make it. We also, you got to be able to explain the game in under 5 minutes. And you got to be able to play it in under an hour.
Okay, so 5-minute rules explanation. You got 5-minute rule explanation,
Yes.
1 hour or under play time,
Yeah.
and little people. And I don't mean little people like me. I mean little young people need to be able to play
I
it.
was gonna say,
Okay.
And the big thing that Terry's the guy who created Goblet. He's like our creative guy.
Yeah.
And he needs a wow factor, is what he calls it. Something that makes you say, oh my God, that's fun.
Mhm.
Right.
So with Dr. Eureka, the
yeah.
wow factor is
It's
obviously
pretty kinetic. It's obvious. It's visual.
But with like New York 1901, it's like oh my God, these are skyscrapers from New York. There's got to be something where you look at it or you play it and it's like, ooh, I want more.
I have a question about 1901.
Go
Yes, sir.
shoot.
Are you guys going to do like a deluxe version where you actually get to place the skyscrapers? Because it's a building about skyscrapers, but it's so two-dimensional. It would be so awesome with big buildings.
Hello, Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You're saying a 3-dimensional skyscraper would be a good idea. Yeah, we're thinking about it. I would be our first Kickstarter probably if it happens. There's a lot of that happening. A lot of.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm no longer muted. So yeah, there's interest, there's talk. I as a personal unofficial, I think it's going to happen. Yeah, I want it to happen, and if I have any power, it's going to happen.
Because literally right now, I'm taking the pieces from my Star Wars Episode 1 Monopoly, because they had the big one. I'm like,
Oh,
we
you're a
can
goof.
play
That's
with
hilarious.
these.
We have that too. Oh, I should use my big city pieces. That would look good.
It did come up in development, and for a variety of different reasons, we decided it was not the best move for the first version of the game, but it
for
has
sure.
something
I'd buy a deluxe version though.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a deluxe version, and it would be 3D, and I think it would be very cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And Chenier is Canadian, so he's awesome just by default, right?
Just by default. On the note of being a polite Canadian, the room is starting to fill up with more people. So why don't Brendan and I step off, and a couple people can step in.
Very nice.
That are in the room. If Tim and Seth, do you want to jump in?
Sure.
Awesome.
Perfect. So we've got Tim Eisner, who is the designer of March of the Ants, coming on the show, and we also have Seth Jaffe, I believe, who is our liaison with TMG as the developer. He's also the designer of such games as Eminent Domain. Eminent Domain.
Are you going robot again?
Yeah. No, I'm not going robot on you. Other games like, I don't know, Island of Trains with Dan Kettner, and he's got a new dexterity game where you throw cards. But it's not. It's a contest, so we'll talk about it. What's up?
Not.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Daryl was just asking if I had Suburban Sprawl, the dexterity game, with me, and I do not.
Why would you not have it with you? What kind of designer are you?
Because it's already in the contest. Like what am I gonna do?
I don't know. Maybe test it
If
some
I
more?
play it now, I'll just find something I want to change. It's too late.
True. So, what are you guys doing at Sasquatch?
I just got here playing games. I hope.
Yeah, playing a lot of games. I'm on my third game now. We're just setting up 504, so very excited to check that out and just play one of the worlds and see how that works and check out the meta nature of that.
Yeah, very cool. Have you seen it before?
I have not seen it before. No, this is the first time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it from a designer perspective. It's a pretty neat labor of love from Friedemann, so that's very cool. And Seth, what about you? What have you played? I heard Gold West hit the table.
I did. I was just playing Gold West with my brother-in-law and my girlfriend. 504 is one I'm also very interested in. I haven't been this excited about to try a game in a long time, and I'm kind of hesitant because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to think it's like really fun, but I'm still super interested in trying it and examining it and studying it a little bit and seeing how it comes together. And I'm hoping that it'll be fun also, but likely not all 504 games are superstars, but
yeah,
hopefully they're still.
I think you have to kind of know that going in.
Yeah,
it's really neat though.
And I watched that game night episode where they played it, and I was like, yeah, I'm nervous that I'm just gonna like be really interested in the game, but not really enjoy playing it. That's my.
Yeah, it's more of a design exercise in my mind, and I mean, talking with Friedemann about it for the last couple of years and testing it with him, it was a real labor of love for him to get it done and vet every single version and run it through the simulators and things like that. So, I mean, he's done a ton of work. It depends on whether you think it has a soul or not, right? Because it's just going to be a combination of rules, random combination of rules. And it's so interesting how he came up with it. He was looking at a kid's book where you kind of flip pages to make characters and things like that out of it. And then he said, what if they were rules? And then Friedemann's ginormous, crazy brain goes elsewhere with that, and it becomes 504. So it's pretty funny. But it's neat. It's neat watching him play it and playing it with them. But yeah, I mean, my concern as well is that does it have that fun factor? It's definitely got that interest factor, and from a designer, it's definitely interesting. Oh, Tyler, you got some questions? Shoot.
I do. I have a question for both of you gentlemen. As designers, when you go to a convention like this, and you both said, "Oh, I'm really excited to see this game. I've been hearing about it, anticipating it." As designers, do you find yourselves like, "Oh, I'm so ingrained in making my own games, I can't enjoy other people's stuff, or I do, like, oh, I love my stuff, but oh, I can't wait to see what this guy does with this because I had a similar idea and I want to see how he changed it or something, or I'll leave you both to that.
I'm really excited about this convention in specific because there's so many new games. A lot when I go to conventions, I'm demoing games I'm working on or testing them out with people. And this one, since there's so many other new games, I'm really excited just to expand my world. And I think every game, even if it's similar, it's probably not the same as what I'm working on, so I can learn something. And if it is similar, I want to make it a little bit different than that one. So in general, it's just I'm excited to play as many games as possible, and this is a great opportunity to play a ton of new games.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Reiner Knizia famously doesn't like to play anyone else's games because he doesn't want to be influenced by them, and he's got armies of playtesters to let him know if he's doing something that's already been done or whatever. I feel the opposite. I like to play lots of different games because they're fun, and also I can get ideas from them. And in my opinion, putting mechanisms together in a new way, even if they're not new mechanisms, to make a new game experience is just as good, just as fun, and just as valid, I guess, as innovating some brand new mechanism no one's thought of before. So this, when I play at conventions, I don't feel like I have to be playing, my own games or anything like that. I do sometimes struggle between spending time playing other games when I could be testing a prototype or something, but I try to balance that out. And one thing I really like about Sasquatch is that it's not work. It's not Gen Con. I don't have to be, looking at it from a publisher's point of view or whatever. I don't have to be looking at it from a designer's point of view. I can learn the new games. I was at Essen, but I didn't get to play a whole lot. And so here I get to see all the new stuff and actually play it, have people teach me a game for a change, and actually hang out and just play some games. And that said, I have brought a bag full of prototypes, and I'm hoping to get a few of those to the table. But that's because I also enjoy that, right? Not because it's work. I enjoy it.
And with that, you kind of answered the next part of my question is, as designers, do you live in a prototype world, or do you live in a, oh, hey, I still love to play games? Like, which do you balance between them? What's your take on that?
Well, for me, it's tough because I like both. And so I like to play, and like I said, I like to keep seeing what's out there. Like Tim was saying, I like to keep seeing what's being done and what the new technology is. But at the same time, whenever I'm playing a published game, like at home when I have friends over, whenever we're playing a published game, part of me is like, wow, this is time I could spend testing a prototype. And it's down the tube.
The
right?
jealousy. It's real. It's real.
Yeah, it's not entirely down the tube.
I know.
It's fun, and also, and as far as playtesters are concerned, you don't want to burn them out on playtesting all the time either. So it's good sometimes to just sit back and play some game that, an old favorite, for example.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I think it's definitely a balance. I mean, when I'm working on a design, I want to be in it a lot, but I think it's really healthy to take a break and also remember why I love playing games so much and why I want to design games. And so playing some other games, leaving that work and doing more play, but it's play, but it's still like ruminates and helps your brain develop. And like I might play a game and be like, oh, be thinking about a game I'm working on that's totally unrelated, why I'm playing it. So it's hard when I'm in design to like put it on the side, but I think it's really healthy, and I'm excited to be here to specifically do that.
Yeah. One of the things about 504, the dichotomy between being interested in it because of the mechanisms and liking to play it because it's fun. That's one of those things. Like some games are just, if you play as a player, you don't worry about the design of it. They're just fun, and you like to play them because they evoke some feeling for you. But if you come in and you play a game from a designer's point of view, there's a separate kind of fun, a different kind of fun where you're, even if the game isn't by itself necessarily exciting or fun, you could, as a designer, really enjoy it because you're interested in how they got the mechanisms together or how elegant it is or whatever. And that's what 504 might be like, because it's going to be tough to keep a theme with all the different combinations.
Yes, definitely. It definitely seems like a very abstract game. It's just like, oh, let's put these mechanisms together and see what happens.
So Tim, tell us about, is Weird City Games, is that your company?
That's my company, yeah. I started that about 2.5 years ago, and our first game is March of the Ants, which we did a Kickstarter for a year and a half ago. It came out in March this year. And then we have another game that I put up on Kickstarter in September. It didn't fund, so I'm sort of retooling the Kickstarter, and possibly looking for publishers for it to see if that might be a better route. And sort of
there's a guy right next to you.
Yeah, no, I was going to try and show that.
So tell us about the experience of failure in Kickstarter. Typically, we don't talk about that, but I'd like to hear about that from your perspective right now, if you care to share. What happens when you don't fund? What do you do?
I'm excited to talk about it because it's tough at first, especially in that first moment of realizing that it's not happening, and you're like, okay, do I cancel or do I wait it out? Is this going to happen? Do I beg my friends and family to make it happen? Which I decided not to do because that's not really the point of trying to get games out to people. For me, it was demoralizing at first and sort of like took a little time to adjust my ego and get back onto like, oh, why do I make games? I'm excited still to make them. I have a good game that I like that I made, so it's not like a failure, like it totally failed. The campaign failed. And for me, it made me really like examine my Kickstarter practices and what I was doing and sort of think about it over, like think it through. And I've learned a lot, sort of examined what went wrong and what I could do better, and sort of understand Kickstarter as a medium more of like what type of games I should be designing, not specifically for Kickstarter, but which ones might be more successful on Kickstarter and which ones might be better through a traditional publishing route or in other methods. So,
yeah. So it just so happens that Tasty Minstrel Games had a recent Kickstarter that didn't fund, and that was expansion for Kings of Air and Steam, Kings of Air and Steam World Fair. And actually, so it was a little bit surprising to me, and there's a few factors that I'm sure went into that, and part of which was like 80 projects launched that day or something. That's one of them, and another might have been that it's just been a long time since the base game came out, and maybe people didn't maybe know about it as much. There's lots of reasons, but the question wasn't the reasons. The question was, what do you do? And this might serve as a good reminder. People look at TMG and they a lot of the small publishers actually they'll look at a small publisher and they'll think, oh, they're a big publisher, they have games out, and they don't realize how small the publishers are in this industry and how much it matters. Some people might say, oh, TMG publishes so many games, why do they need to use Kickstarter? Well, this Kings of Air and Steam World Fair might be a reminder of what happens when we don't fund. The answer is it'll come out eventually, but we just got to wait for some money to come in. So I don't believe we're going to be re-kickstarting that. We're just going to wait until we have some cash flow and then put the game out. And it's kind of too bad for everyone who was antsy for the game and waiting for it. But if enough people weren't antsy for the game and waiting for it, that to pledge the 30 grand or whatever it was that was being asked, it just doesn't happen. So for those who are like, oh, it's going to happen anyway, well, maybe it won't, or it will eventually. But not everyone is just doing this to just pre-sell the games or whatever.
Yeah. I think it's a big fallacy and people just don't understand cash flow. Like really, unless you run a business, you don't know what cash flow is, and you don't understand that you are basically living on borrowed cash flow a lot of times in order to put out your product to make more cash. And that's what Kickstarter is supposed to help with. Even big companies can get into cash flow problems, right? And that's usually when big companies go under, is when there are cash flow problems. And so for the small publishers, and Tasty Minstrel, as quote-unquote big as it is still relatively small compared to some of the other publishing houses. And so, you guys are still relying a lot on Kickstarter to do things. I know Michael doesn't want to eventually, like everybody would rather not, I'm sure. But that means that you have to have very liquid assets and mobile assets as well.
And some people might say, well, why not just try again or whatever? And the answer is because we've got a lot of stuff coming. Instead of trying again with that Kickstarter, that keep trying until that works. Instead, any minute now they're going to be TMG's going to launch a Kickstarter for the reprint of Coliseum, and we'll do that instead, right? So it's not like we're not going to use Kickstarter in the meantime.
Right.
It's as we attempted to kickstart the expansion. It didn't get the steam that we wanted to. We're gonna move on to the next thing, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't that Kickstarter's broken. It's that the expansion didn't have the buzz behind it that it needed to get funded, right?
Well, there's a variety of things, and we might have done a subpar job of letting people know it was coming, so they didn't know. It could be that there was just too much demanding attention, too many other projects and things like that.
I blame Jamie and Scythe.
Well, so that didn't happen until after, but
I
yeah,
know, but
I'm wondering though.
Like the lead
I'm
up.
wondering if anyone launching a campaign while Scythe is going is going to see problems. But I don't really think that's necessarily the case. A lot of people are. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh no, I don't want to launch a Kickstarter against Stonemaier Games," or "I don't want to launch a Kickstarter when Exploding Kittens is getting all this money." I'm not really sure it works that way. Like, I mean, to an extent, any given buyer might have a limited budget and they're only going to buy one of two things. But I mean, do you not want your game on the shelf next to all the other games because someone might buy the other one? It doesn't make sense really to me. So I mean, there's a lot of overlap. There's so many different people buying games, and someone spending $100 on Scythe doesn't necessarily mean people aren't going to spend whatever $50 on whatever game you might launch. With this next Kickstarter, the Emperor's Edition of Colosseum, I mean that's kind of a luxury product in a luxury market, right? It's going to be the Emperor's Edition. It's kind of like the Orleans Deluxe was, I think, where it'll be a fancier version. It's not going to be your average $40, $50 game. I'm sure it's going to. I'm not sure what the price is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be kind of pricey because it's going to be very fancy. People who are going to spend that kind of money on a board game aren't going to not do that because they also bought Scythe recently or something like that. I think it's not necessarily an issue. Although Scythe is doing very well, I've actually pledged for it. Not because I'm 100% sure I'm going to like playing Scythe, but because I really respect and am happy with how Jamie ran his campaign. Well, not the campaign so much as ran this game. From the outset, initially I actually was worried that when I saw him post a year ago that, I saw some art and it inspired a game and my next big game is going to be this, and he hadn't even made the game yet, and he's like, oh yeah, we're going to do it, it's going to be on Kickstarter, it's going to be great, and I'm like, are you sure? Like that doesn't always pan out.
Yeah.
So I was very skeptical at first, but then he did the work. He not only did he make a game that fit the description, but he worked on it and he sent it to 750 playtest groups and he did the work, and I respect that. So I wanted to reward him, if nothing else, by pledging for the game just based on that. And if it sits on my shelf and doesn't get played, I feel like that's I'd still rather pledge for that instead of not pledging.
Right.
It so happens I've got Euphoria and I played it like twice and haven't played it since, but I still wouldn't, I'm still backing this campaign because of the effort more than.
And I mean, Jamie gives a lot back to the community as well in terms of his leadership, for the lack of better words, and his insight. So. Well,
yeah, he's done great things, and it shows. Like it shows in the numbers that Scythe is bringing right now.
Definitely, yeah. He was. I mean, his writing, his blog, it was very instrumental in me getting my first game launched, and avoiding a lot of pitfalls and helping me design it. As far as the failure on Kickstarter too, I mean, I think for me it was kind of nice in a way that Kickstarter sometimes shows if a market isn't there, if the product's not exactly formatted as it should be, because in the game, my game Little Pig, it's a pretty fast game that's filler but deep because it's a lot about player interaction and bluffing and deduction. But I wanted to include wooden houses, but that raised the price more, and so maybe a lower price point is going to be a better product. So instead of getting it funded at what it was, maybe it's in the end going to be better and sell better in retail if I revamp it and shift around what the components are for the final game. And so I think Kickstarter's cool in that way, and that it can sort of let you know what the market, at least on Kickstarter, will handle.
Right.
It's also, that's a caveat there, because the people who buy games on Kickstarter aren't necessarily a reflection of the whole gaming public, but so I'd be really interested to know more about that, of who the people who back games on Kickstarter are versus people who buy games in retail, and how that they reflect each other.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. Like if you look at any Facebook group, the Board Game Geek, even just on their Facebook club or whatever, their forum there, it's a lot of people have never used Kickstarter before, lots of them, and they're like, this is my first Kickstarter I'm doing, what should I support? It's very strange to see that, having been on Kickstarter since the inception. Tyler, you have a question? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When you're in the comment section, it just feels like everyone uses Kickstarter, and then you don't realize, just like when you're on BGG, you feel like that's a reflection of everybody who plays games, but it really is not. It's a very small percentage.
It's a reflection of people who use BGG. Tyler, you have some questions?
Yes, two things. One, Coliseum. I got that in a crappy $20 bargain bin trade from somebody last year. I was like, oh my goodness. He's like, oh, I can't stand this game. I said, oh, here's two that you can check out. And I gave him a chance to check them out. I'm like, oh, because it was going for like $120 on eBay. I was like, oh my goodness. And the second thing, we have a question from the audience. Sir Bob is wondering if you two gentlemen will be going to Unpub 6. And with that, as you had said earlier about going to Essen and different conventions, do you find that certain conventions you have to hit for work, certain ones you have to hit for play, or do you find a balance with them?
I haven't made it to many of the big conventions, and I feel like I need to do that for work just to sort of meet more people and get more exposed in the industry, especially if I'm going to start trying to get designs to publish through other people. Most of the conventions I go to are for work. Like I feel like I'm, spending the money to get there, and you usually spend 80% of my time like demoing prototypes and sort of working on that. So I think that was the second question. I forget the first question. Unpub 6, I'm not sure if I will be there or not. I haven't been to an Unpub yet. I'd like to check it out, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to that one.
Yeah, so I've never been to Unpub. We had an Unpub Mini here in my hometown of Tucson, and I also went to one in like San Jose. But I've not been to the main Unpub event. I've kind of wanted to. I haven't got any plans to currently. It's kind of way across town, that is to say, country from me. I'm kind of waiting for Daryl to invite me as a guest or something like that, and then I'll go. I'm just kidding, Daryl. So, Daryl. But as far as the other events, I've been to some Protospiels, and I have enjoyed them. I like that kind of event, and I go there. I can scout for games. Often, I found it's not a whole lot of games that are at the Protospiel events. It's like diamond in the rough. Like occasionally you'll see one that is like done and ready and exciting, and sometimes you'll see one that's exciting but not done. But I don't know. There's a lot of games there, and they're not all that way. And even the ones that aren't necessarily good for audience. So it's tough. When I go to Gen Con, that's 100% work basically. It was a lot lighter this year than last year. Last year was like 14-hour days every day. This year we had a little bit more. A little more people and we didn't have our demo room, so it was a little bit better scheduled. And then Essen is largely work as well. Got to scout out for games to maybe import. Got a lot of designer meetings with a lot of the UK designers and stuff. But yeah, so the Essen and Gen Con are definitely all work. When I go to the other conventions I go to, some smaller ones, it's kind of for a cross between fun and work. Like I said, I like to get my prototypes out. And I tend to, if people ask, I'll demo a TMG game that just came out or whatever. I don't usually go there with that intent, and we don't usually have a booth at these smaller cons. But I tend to do like 20 or 30% demoing and prototypes and stuff, and the rest of the time trying to find games to play or more prototypes. And then BGG Con is generally all play. We're gonna have TMG has a booth at BGG Con, but I won't have to be in it, so I get to play games, and play prototypes, and stuff
all
like
work
that.
and no play makes Jack a dull boy. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's true. Seth, last question before we let you go and bring on Nicholas Trahan and Daryl back again. So Belfort Days, what do you think?
I fell asleep reading the rules the other night, and then I had to come here. So I've not read the rules. I was looking at the cards though. I read through all the cards. They sounded, I don't know, interesting without knowing the rules. I mean, I imagine I know some of the rules because you told me, but I have not had a chance to go through that and really understand how it works. But
that's okay. If you need anything, just call Jay or myself, and we'll get on Skype with you. Brought it down to 25 dice just for you, man, just for you. All right, so we're gonna call on Nicholas Trahan and Daryl to come back on the show. Say goodbye to Seth. Bye, Seth. Bye, Tim. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you guys in a bit. Oh, and there's Daryl. And I don't know if you guys actually saw Daryl's name tag. You guys should look at Daryl's name tag. Daryl, show us your name tag again. There you go. That's awesome. It's little fluffy clouds. So we're here with Daryl again, and he is live at Sasquatch 2015 in Seattle, Washington. Daryl, why are you there? Are you in Kitchener-Waterloo?
Yeah, it's just around the corner, and no. So for anyone who follows our show, they would know. But I'm going to say for anyone who's new that's watching, I actually was recruited to be the mule, and so I was the one who carried the 200 games from Essen to here. I foolishly accepted that job, killed myself lugging them here, but now I'm here, and this is the perk, is that once this video is done, I get to spend the rest of the week / weekend playing games, which I didn't get to do at Essen because I was buying games. So
Sherpa.
So this is
well, Tyler and I get to play games all weekend too at JEF Con.
Yeah.
JEF Con 3.
I know. I will say that I'm actually quite sad to be missing out on JEF Con.
I haven't told Jeff this yet, but Bearded Meeple is going to be at the 3rd anniversary of the Game Chamber on Saturday, so.
Awkward. Yeah, so Jeff doesn't watch our show, I don't think. No. So that's why I'm here, is to lug games, but then to play games. And actually, I know a fair amount of the games, so I'm hoping to teach a bunch of the games as well. Network, meet people.
So I got to look for you all weekend.
Well,
he knows the games.
I know a few. One game, though, that I haven't actually got to try yet is yours, but it's been high on my list. Villainy with Mayfair.
That's right. Yeah.
Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and how that game came to be?
It's Villainy, VILL?
Yeah, like a villain.
Yeah, like a villain.
Oh, because Daryl typed something else in the feed. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Villainy.
Yeah, it's Villainy, and it actually came out last year.
Last year, it was Gen Con release, right?
Yeah,
I remember
right.
it being one of the big publicized games of Gen Con.
Yeah, it came out last year, and that's my first. That's the first thing I've done in board games. I come from a video game background.
Oh wow!
So I spent some time at Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then switched over to sort of independent contracting when I had my first kid. And then later I had 2 kids, and it was just too hard to do that.
Sure.
And I switched to board games.
Excellent. So are there more games cooking?
Yeah, actually, so Mayfair's actually got another. My next one is next year. It comes out.
Wow.
So that's cool. I'm excited about that one.
Are you allowed to mention the name?
Well, I don't know if they're going to change it. I mean, it's called At the Gates right now, and it's co-op.
Excellent.
And I really like that one, actually.
We know a little bit about how Mayfair is a little quiet for a while. Our good friend Stefan Alexander has King Chocolate just coming out with Mayfair. Real soon, but there was a bit
he didn't even know what the name change was.
We were the ones to inform him of, like, for instance, the name change.
It was pretty funny.
When I signed with Villainy, they were like, you can tell everybody, right? It doesn't matter.
Right.
So I assume it's the same. Otherwise,
Larry's pretty easygoing.
Larry loves us, so he'd be very forgiving. Yeah. I don't know if I told my Larry story. Did I tell my Larry story last week?
No. There's another Larry story?
Well, no, not as good as the Larry story from when he was on our show.
Oh.
But, Larry actually saved my butt. It was actually quite interesting. I walked in early one day to pick up games, and I had picked up 1 game from Lookout and 1 game from Mayfair at Essen, and I needed to pick up a 3rd game, which I didn't realize. Like, I was supposed to buy all 3 as a bundle. I had actually bought both games and was already over the price of what all 3 games were going to cost as a bundle. So I went up to Larry and I was like, "So can I have this game and $5 back?" And Larry hooked me up. So thanks to Larry. He walked over to Lookout, said, "Okay, like, just give this guy this game, give him the money, and look the other way. Like, don't worry about it." So,
very good.
Big shout out to Larry for taking care of things.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, and just for people who watch the show regularly, and for people who funded us on Kickstarter, just so you know, Daryl went to Essen not on Kickstarter funding. He went there on Sasquatch funding. So that's why he's at Sasquatch right now. So just to clarify. Nicholas, let's...
vacation time for this. I'm paying for things.
You had to take what?
Oh, well, this is vacation.
I want to see receipts.
Yeah, I have to pay for, like, my room and for, like, food and travel, all that.
Yeah, so I don't want to see receipts because it's not off Meeple syrup. There you go. And happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. How many years?
Yeah, it was yesterday, and it
Yeah.
was my 8-year anniversary. It was wonderful. We went up to Vancouver, so it was really
So you
quite
celebrated
beautiful.
in Canada. Awesome. Oh, speaking of
Yeah,
that and Mayfair, did you see the Settlers of Canada Tan?
yeah,
I can't even
Canada,
pronounce it. I don't know. Canada.
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 Canada? I don't know. It's very funny.
Yeah,
But
too
let's
much.
let's talk to Nicholas because that's just not about Nicholas at all.
All right. So while we have a designer here, why don't we throw a few questions his way, and then I can probably answer a few questions about Sasquatch after that. We're both noobs to Sasquatch.
Yeah, I've been to Sasquatch for a total of as many minutes as I've been on this show. They sent me down here immediately.
So you gotta pepper them with designer questions, not Sasquatch.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question from the audience for you, sir. Christopher Chung, who has played your tower defense game somewhere else.
I guess you could call the co-op tower defense.
Yeah. What was it? What did it used to be called?
It's called At the Gates. Has
the
it ever been
Gates?
called anything else?
I don't know. Christopher said he said it was named something else when I got to play.
Maybe.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Christopher Chung, the designer of lanterns, for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah.
Wonderful designer.
Huh.
So what is the theme behind your game?
The new one or
Yeah.
the
new one.
The new one is you are defending a castle, but it's a little different. You and the other players are the armory. So you create weapons.
Okay.
And it's got a really cool visual hook because you basically see you have a big mat and you see a weapon in front of you that is kind of really boring and plain, and it's divided into card-shaped sections, and you have a handful of cards that look fancier and also have better dice or more symbols or bonuses on them, and so you cover that weapon with the cards from your hand. So like when you're visually enhancing it as well as doing the thing, but it's timed. So basically, all the monsters show up. They sort of flip and reveal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so there's like 4 doors to this castle that goes up to 4 players. So like everybody's freaking out and trying to decide who should build the weapon for the soldier at each gate, and then build it. And then there's the second phase that's not timed, where you're rolling the dice to figure out whether or not you beat that monster. And there's a decision process in who goes first and who goes last. And you want a strong guy to go last so you can draw more cards. If he succeeds, you want the first guy is going to help out the second guy. So there's a lot to it. It's really pretty fun, and it's been going on I've been developing that for a while now. So
cool. It's nice to see that finally getting some love. Excellent.
yeah, it's interesting. I've been playing it with so many people, like at Gen Con and different things around here. So I know a lot of people have seen it in a lot of different stages.
That's when Christopher said he played it at Gen Con. So
yeah.
I have a question for you, Nicholas, and actually question for you on this, Sen, because you just mentioned Belfort, the dice game. It seemed about 1.5 years ago that the thing to do was, let's make a dice version of the game. So, because you just said you've been working on this one for quite a while, it's been in the works, and Sen, you're just saying, hey, Belfort Dice, like, how do you guys feel about, dice games? How is this going to go? Like, are we flooding the market too soon? Should we hold on to it? What's your take?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. So for me, I mean, board games is kind of a learning process for me, and I learned on my last game, Villainy, like, you've got basically dice on one end and no dice on the other end, and you're like, don't put heavy strategy plus dice, in the mix. So I didn't really think about it from that point. I just kind of designed it as like I knew I wanted to make a co-op game that diffused the alpha player issue.
Nice.
That was kind of the design exercise.
Yeah.
And so it really does that, and
Cool.
it just happens to be a dice.
well, then I'm looking forward to it.
It's more
That
of
is
I love dice games, and I have no problem with people bringing it lots more. I just thought of a question I thought I would ask.
yeah. It's probably more of a risk management game because it's kind of up to you how few dice you want to try to get away with, because you want to save your cards, but you don't want to die.
Right.
Right.
It's almost more your resource that you're spending.
Right.
Plus you have your cards.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Actually, I have it. If you want to play it.
I would love to play it.
There you go. That's what happens at Sasquatch.
That's right. Yeah.
Daryl, what about you and dice? What are your?
Well, I mean, Tyler knows a little bit why I've been thinking about dice lately, because I've been working on a little side project for a game I can't publicly talk about yet. But one thing that I've found is I actually have spent probably the last month exploring how people have used dice. Anything from micro games and quick games, games like, we were even talking before the air about Liar's Dice, and how like a game like Liar's Dice is actually always, doing a negative loop versus, how can you use dice where it's choice, or where it's, building anticipation or excitement. We've seen a lot of examples of real-time use of dice. So I think it's fascinating, but what's always true is that dice crave to be used. I mean, over and over again, people are curious, what new ways could we use dice? Or even if it's not new, if it's familiar, what could you combine with it? Like a good recipe, what new mechanic can you mix with it, or which way can, a dice component be used? So I think ultimately we're not oversaturating the market. I think people love dice. I know for myself, even just going back to my childhood, like I loved, as much as it's a poorly designed thing like Risk, I loved, when you rolled dice and you just squash that person with a nice dice fest. So I think there's always a connection there. Now there is an interesting connection though with the Euro or the strategy gamer, with how much is that luck. And I think Sen, for instance, when we were talking off air before, was talking about ways to use dice so that it could be about choices. And so I think there's intelligent ways. I think the perfect example is like Castles of Burgundy, as an example of a dice game that's all about strategy. And there's a variety of other examples, I think.
Or Trois, games like that, where you're using dice as your workers, Alien Frontiers, very similar in that regard. Not a similar game, but just the idea.
Dark Rock
yeah.
dice work. Yeah.
So I mean, with dice and games and things like that, I like dice. I love dice. I have here's one container of dice.
I was just trying to show the tiniest dice ever. I actually played Yahtzee with these.
Dude,
two containers of dice.
Is that from like the Pirates game?
Yeah, probably Pirates of the Spanish Main.
What the heck?
Yeah, I have a lot of those too.
I used to play 40K a lot, and I always had this bag of all the like random special dice.
Yeah, like the scatter dice and stuff.
Scatter very far, I would use the smallest dice because that's like
but I think dice can be so fun, and just rolling them is such a kinetic thing. It's tactile and kinetic. You like seeing them, you like hearing them roll, and so people really like dice. Gavin has said this on the show before. Gavin Brown from Roxy Games has said, the difference between a Euro and a Ameri game is, Euros, you generally roll the dice and then make a decision after that based on the results of the dice, whereas American games, you typically make a decision and roll the dice, and that tells you if you're successful or not at your decision. And we tend to be on the Euro side when we decide, but that doesn't mean that the other way is wrong. It just depends on what type of feeling you're going for and how much the game rides on that.
Target audience, feel of game, absolutely.
Exactly. I mean, you cannot get that epic feel of I staved off you for 40 turns, hunkered down in Australia with 2 dice, if you don't have that random factor built in. It's impossible to get that type of feeling. Well, maybe not impossible. It's really hard. Nicholas, I wanted to ask you about your transition from the video game world to the analog game world. I know a lot of people who are doing that. I know a lot of people who go the other way as well. And so, what made it a decision for you to do that, and what has made it easy, and what has made it hard?
Well, it was more of it's just sort of a decision out of necessity for me. I'm an artist and a designer and not a programmer. And so as my spare time to work on these video game projects just became less consistent, I felt like it was harder and harder to synchronize with my programmer and like actually get something done. Because there could be times where I would have a week straight to work, and then it'd be like 2 months before I'd get another chance to work with him. And that's really hard with video game development because for me, because I couldn't push the game forward. He's just waiting, nothing's happening. I mean, being on board games, I don't need a programmer. I can do the mechanics on my own, and that means that if I'm waiting 2 weeks, nobody's waiting for me. And a lot of times I can think about it without having to. I can be doing something in my head while I'm doing something else, you know. So get a lot done. Go to these kinds of conventions. You can get that playtesting done, and you really need a couple months between anyway. I don't need to go to the next convention. I'm not ready for that if I've made revisions and stuff like that. So it's pretty nice. I was really surprised how easy this industry was, or really how approachable this industry was. It was very 50-50. Like there's some companies, you know, like if you want to talk to like Fantasy Flight.
Sure.
And you're like,
Wow.
I can't even find your like phone number or anything. And then there's like Mayfair or Rio Grande. It's like I'd really like to, and they're like, oh yeah, show up tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and we'd love to. Yeah, it was. So I don't know. I found it it's really fun.
It's definitely personable, and it's definitely an industry that is trusting and less cutthroat than the video game industry. Also, I think it's less. There's something different about it. It's funny, when I posted something on the Meeple Syrup Twitter, like maybe 2 or 3 months ago, Daryl, remember when I talked about game dev, and I just hashtagged it like that, and a bunch of programmer types got on the hashtag and started talking about video game design, and it was great. It was great to have that cross-pollination, but some of them were really antagonistic, like, I don't think you guys know what game design is. It's like, what? I don't understand what you're talking about. So there's a different mentality, there's a different vibe and a different scene completely. How do you find your skills have translated though between the industries, Nicholas?
I guess you know I guess that's they're more similar than you might think. I guess. I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, when working on video games, I was more on the art side, and in the user interface, I had some access to design and things like that, but less so with like getting right into the mechanics, unless it was my own project or somebody had hired me to do that specifically. But I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to do this stuff, and I think it's just it's all kind of the same type of person. All of the genres and all the types. So I don't know. That's an interesting question, but it just seems like all the same skill set to me. I guess it's just a matter of what I'm doing.
Speaking of a good question, we have a question in the audience from Beth Sobel. She wants to know, what type of game is Villainy?
Yeah, so before you do that, I want you to do it like you were doing your 30-second pitch to a publisher.
All right,
And
I have to
go.
dust it out because it's been a while.
You got 30
All
seconds,
right,
bro. Go.
All right, Villainy is a game where you play a sort of a wannabe supervillain starting out in your garage. You got nothing but an evil plan, and that's pretty much it. So you start off in your basement, your mom's basement probably, and it's all about a race with all the other evil villains to be the first evil villain to make it big in the city. The problem is that Mr. Fantastiman, who's like an actual real superhero, is keeping everybody in check. So it's basically a race for street cred. It's kind of a card drafting game.
Okay.
You're basically looking at petty crimes and sort of these washed up henchmen that you may or may not want to take onto your team. You give them weird tasks, and it's kind of a crazy game where stuff happens and you take it because you need the stats, but then the thing, like the description, is kind of out of your control, and that's actually what makes it fun. You end up with like.
And who did the art? I feel it's somebody that I know personally.
That was super awesome, and that was actually probably how I got my break with that. I mean, it was I think his name is it Jay Stevens?
It is Jay Stevens.
That did the art.
Yeah.
And when I pitched it to Mayfair, Alex sat back and he goes, "I know exactly who would do the art for this." He said that was like the first thing.
Oh, that's pretty funny. I don't know that they picked him. That's cool.
Well, I think it was like a game that it was a game that he liked, and he had an artist on file that he didn't have anything to do with him, and at the time this is my first game. I brought it. I pitched it to a bunch of people, and I actually someone else took it. I think it was Cryptozoic. And
yes.
A year later, it fell through. The guy ended up leaving, and the whole thing got restarted. And at the following Gen Con, I went back again. I was like, "Do you remember this game?" He's like, "I do," and I still want it. So they took it again, and it ended up going through. So I was really long development cycle, and I had already been like in it for like. It started out as a reality TV show game, and you were the character on the show.
How bizarre.
Yeah, you were a character on the show, and it was all about these interpersonal relationships where like you had to do these random tasks, and it was like almost like The Amazing Race. It was like
Right.
you had to like
Yeah.
make
Oh
a
yeah,
pizza,
I get it. Yeah.
you know, and the people like if it didn't work out, you would have some sort of bad blood, and you'd have to like
Sure.
deal with that. And I play tested it a bunch, and then somebody said one of my more favorite play testers is like, I really want a supervillain version of this game,
Nice.
and that changed everything. And I probably would, yeah. I mean,
That's really neat. Again, how theme, informs the mechanic. And just
Yeah.
so you know, I don't know if you know this, Nicholas, but we like you even more now because I didn't know if you know, but Jay Stevens is from Canada. Jay's from Guelph, Ontario, which is right near where Daryl and
It's
I.
like 30 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
artwork is
you now
the
have a
doc-
Canadian connection, an even closer Canadian connection to maple syrup, which is awesome.
Well, you know, I'm from Georgia, Vermont, which is like half an hour
Vermont,
from
that's
Canada.
Yeah.
Canada.
It's pretty
yeah,
much,
I mean, you're
close.
very close to the Quebec border, right?
Yeah, the French. You know, it's weird. When I moved to Seattle, it was kind of a trip because I'd never met a Canadian that didn't sound French
Great.
Canadian. They'd be like, I'm from Canada, and I'd be like,
No, you're not.
sound like you're from Canada.
That's funny. All right. You know what, guys? It is 12:01, and I have to go suck water out of my basement. So we're going to close, but Daryl, go ahead and wrap this thing up, buddy.
Yeah, well, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, bearing with some of our technical difficulties. If you're in the London area and you have a shop vac, come by Sen's house and start sucking up some water. I want to also mention to people, keep an eye on the Twitter. I'll try to take some photos for maple syrup of some of the games I'll be trying. If you have questions about them, let me know, and I can kind of get you the word on the street. What games are getting some buzz, what games are maybe not. But I do recommend that you just check out the games you really want to try as well. For any of our game designer viewers out there, I just want to encourage you to keep working on those designs, and hopefully we'll get to see you soon and get to try some of your games out. So keep making great games, and hopefully we'll get to play them soon. Have a good night.
Good night. No song.
Do, do.